WVUA-FM, Tuscaloosa.
It was a great weekend all around for sports. Basketball, Alabama basketball is #1 in the country for the first time since 2004. Alabama women's basketball swept Auburn. Alabama men's basketball also beat Auburn. So it was just a great weekend all around for Alabama and football.
Yeah, a little uncomfortable, that men's basketball game, playing at Auburn. But they kind of pulled away at the end there. So Alabama basketball is now, 12-0 in SEC conference play, and are currently ranked #1 in the AP poll for the first time in,
Since 2004.
Since 2004. So, yeah, about 20 years, which is insane. So, very, very smart for Alabama to extend Nate Oates on that contract that they just gave him a couple of weeks ago, because Nate Oates has got this Alabama team playing at the peak of college basketball. Speaking of the peak of the sport, we got to witness the two best teams in pro football face each other in the Super Bowl this past weekend, Super Bowl 57. The best team from the NFC, the Philadelphia Eagles, and the best team from the AFC, the Kansas Chiefs. It doesn't happen often that you'll have legitimately the two best teams. Because sometimes you'll have teams that kind of like beat a team and you're like, oh my gosh, how could they have beat this team? And they get in. And it's really not the best representation, in my opinion, of the field, right? So these are both the #1 seeds. They both had, the same records, 14-3, elite quarterbacks. Patrick Mahomes won the MVP. Jalen Hurts came in second on the MVP voting. It was a really good game. Lived up to the hype, right? This was certainly not Georgia TCU, right? When you look at the championship game and say, yeah, probably the best team in college football this year, and maybe like the 6th best team in college football legitimately. They just beat up on a bad conference. No disrespect TCU. But, that's kind of how it was. This was a great game, right? So if you were not able to watch the game or have yet to look at ESPN or wherever you get your sports news, the Kansas City Chiefs took down the Philadelphia Eagles 38-35. Last second field goal, Hail Mary attempt, it had it all. Fumble picked up for a touchdown. Did we have any interceptions? I don't think we did.
We did not.
No interceptions. So it didn't have interceptions, so maybe not all, but it had a lot of everything, okay? Obviously, the Kansas City Chiefs were able to kick a last-second field goal. Philadelphia Eagles got the ball back and attempted to make a Hail Mary pass into the end zone. Fell about 10 yards short, so it's pretty obvious Jalen Hurts, his shoulder was not 100% because he was not able to make that throw all the way into the end zone. So the Kansas City Chiefs have won their second Super Bowl in 4 years. This was their third Super Bowl appearance in 4 years. So very impressive from the Chiefs, and we'll kind of talk about what this means for the Chiefs and the Eagles moving forward, as each of these teams look to continue to be factors in the Super Bowl hunt for the next several years. But let's talk about some key matchups. Let's talk about some of the things that happened here in this game. And I'm going to start with neither one of us got our predictions right. I think we both picked Philadelphia to win, right? I think I had them by 10. What was your point?
Mine was by 7 or 3. It was something close. It was like between 3 and 7.
Yeah, so you were a little bit closer, I guess, in that regard. I think it was by 3. You had them winning by a field goal.
I was
right with the points. Yeah, right with the points. Just wrong team. But yeah, so Kansas City 38, Philadelphia 35. Obviously, both of us picked the Eagles to win. And quite frankly, going into halftime, it felt like the Eagles would win, right? I mean, the time of possession difference was tremendous. I think in the entire first half, the Chiefs had the ball for like 7 minutes and 8 seconds or something like that.
He played perfectly in the Eagles' hands. Time of possession, they ran so much clock, were able to run the ball, and Jalen Hurts was doing everything, man. He played phenomenal. That was probably one of the best games I've seen him play in a football uniform, and he put on a show and deserved why he's going to get the big money soon from the Eagles, and that was the reason why you get a franchise quarterback out of the draft right there.
Yeah, Jalen Hurts went 27 of 38. Had a passer rating of 103.4. Right, so we had 374 all-purpose yards. Accounted for 4 touchdowns, 3 on the ground, 1 through the air. So, phenomenal performance by Jalen Hurts.
Eagles' offense as a whole played great. Eagles' passing attack, rushing attack, Miles Sanders, that early fumble out of bounds that he had, that he really couldn't get into any rhythm at all. They were trying to get it to Kenneth Gainwell, Boston Scott. They just could not run the ball at all. And the Chiefs did a really good job stopping the run and not letting the Eagles get into that running attack. They did control time possession, but the Eagles, as we said last week, they had to win. Throwing the ball was not going to be on the ground, and Jalen Hurts did everything he could to do so.
Yeah, this was exactly what the Kansas City Chiefs should have done, and that's limit the run, right? So you saw oftentimes, I think it was Nick Bolton, the linebacker, was the quarterback spy, hanging out, not necessarily rushing the passer, just kind of chilling behind the D-line. No sacks in this game, I don't think.
They had one sack, I believe.
One sack?
The Chiefs had one sack.
Oh, excuse me. So it looks like
I think he was running out of the pocket and he ran out of bounds for one yard.
It looks like there were 2 sacks.
2 sacks?
Yeah, 2 sacks for
the Chiefs. And we thought the Eagles' pass rush was going to feast. And
1 tackle for a loss for the Eagles' pass rush. They had 5 QB hits. Okay, so pretty decent amount of QB hits there for the Philadelphia Eagles. The Chiefs, 5 tackles for a loss. Again, when you look at it, the Chiefs' D-line really, I think, heard the noise. Eagles' offensive line, in my opinion, is the best O-line in the country. They run the ball all the time, and the Chiefs, I think, decided you're not going to run on us tonight.
The QB sneaks, though, speak for itself. I think that was pretty awesome to see. The timing, the execution, that every time they'd get the 4th and 1, 4th and 2, especially at the goal line situations, they knew they could count on that O-line to move the Chiefs' D-line and get Jalen Hurts in to the end zone or the first down. That was just pretty incredible to see the execution on the QB sneaks almost every time.
Yeah.
They knew they were going to it, and it worked almost every single time. Just elite offensive line right there.
Jeff Stoutland, the offensive line coach and run game coordinator for the Eagles, former Alabama O-line coach, was an Alabama offensive line coach pretty early on for Nick Saban and his during his tenure, right? So Jeff Stoutland has in the past talked about how he teaches the quarterback sneaks. So he was our O-line coach here at Alabama from 2011 to 2012. Were those the back-to-back national championship years? Yeah. So Jeff Stoutland just casually came in here and coached the O-line to 2 straight national titles at Alabama. Very good O-line coach. One of the best in the game. And he talks about watching rugby, right? And so you see the O-linemen, they get their head down, right? And so their head is down level with their shoulders, and they run in and hit their shoulders, right? And so they get that lock with their head in the shoulder gap of the defensive lineman, and they just push. And you get so much push that way, and the quarterback, all he has to do is just ride the holes, right? Ride that little gap. And of course, when you have guys like A.J. Brown and Kenneth Gainwell, Dallas Goedert behind Jalen Hurts pushing him into those gaps, you are usually going to be able to pick up 1 yard, which is all that they needed. And they did that several times with great success. One of the best teams at quarterback sneaks right now.
Yeah.
So
I thought Devontae Smith, he had a great game, made some great catches. I thought A.J. Brown, he showed up. He did his part. That touchdown was really nice. Really great throw
Yeah.
from Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts, Dallas Goedert, man, he had a great catch.
Yeah.
Great
The
catch
A.J.
and
Brown
throw.
catch was
Yeah.
a really good catch. So it's all hands,
Yeah.
right? Arms extended out there, just right there in the hands. So very impressive.
Jalen Hurts made some great throws that nobody probably expected him to make in the past. And that progression from year 1 to year 2 is, I would compare that to Josh Allen's year 1 to year 2 jump right there. It's going to be insane what he does. It's going to be crazy to see what he does year 3. I mean, I'm excited for the future of Jalen Hurts.
Yeah.
And he's got all the builds to be a franchise quarterback, and it's just awesome to see. He's a great, even better person, too. It makes it just a great story right there.
Yeah, I mean, you think about it, Jalen Hurts is in his 3rd season as a pro, right? So he's going into his 4th and final year of his rookie deal. I don't expect him to be on his rookie deal for very much longer.
Nope.
I think the Eagles will want to go ahead and sign him. At the very least, they'll pick up his 5th-year option to give him that security. But this is his 2nd year as a starter, right? He played a couple games at the very tail end of his rookie year, but not really that much. His 1st year as a full-time starter, they go to the playoffs and get blown out in the wild card by the Bucs.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, now his 2nd full year as a starter, they're in the Super Bowl, and he is the MVP runner-up.
Yeah, some of the throws that he's made, that like 3rd and 11, like back shoulder throw to Dallas Goedert, man, just like got it in there, right into the perfect box, and perfect toe taps from Dallas Goedert, even with the bobble, man. That was fantastic. Sucks that they couldn't get the touchdown on that drive. Had to go into a field goal. I thought that changed the game right there. The Chiefs were able to bend, don't break defense in the second half, especially.
Yeah, I mean, the Eagles, you talked about Devontae Smith here. Yeah, he had 7 catches for 100 yards in this game with 9 targets. I think he ended up having like 53% of the entire Eagles reception yardage in the playoffs. So Devontae Smith has been a workhorse for the Eagles in the postseason here. Of course,
that Bama connection.
Yeah, Alabama knows exactly what Devontae Smith is. Heisman Trophy winner, Biletnikoff Award winner. I mean, probably the best receiver in Alabama football history.
Yep.
There's a lot of people who might make Amari Cooper, Julio Jones, although Julio didn't really do much here at Alabama. He's just one of the best receivers ever in the pros.
Similarities between all three is that they're all elite level receivers in the National Football League.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, really great performance by the Eagles. Obviously, not quite enough. The Eagles' defense, man, it was good in the first half, right? Because what was it, 24-14 going into the locker room at halftime, and really the Chiefs' offense had only scored 7 points because Jalen Hurts was pulling to run, goes to switch the balls in his hands to his right arm so he could carry it in his right arm. He's running up the right side of the field, so you want to protect the ball to the outside. And Nick Bolton was there, obviously spying him, and hit him, and the ball just popped out. Was it Nick? I don't think it was Nick Bolton. Nick Bolton picked it up.
Bolton picked it up. I think it was just on his own. I don't think it was anybody.
Yeah, I do think somebody tackled him.
Yeah.
And the ball came out mid-switch, and Nick Bolton was able to scoop and score and put the Chiefs into that.
You got to put plays behind you fast, especially in games like these. And Jalen Hurts did a great job. I mean, next drive, he immediately down the field in a hurry.
Oh yeah.
And that's what great quarterbacks do right there.
I mean, Bryce Young is the coolest, most level-headed quarterback in recent Alabama history, but Jalen Hurts is right there with him.
Yep,
they're both so calm. They both have that mentality of put the play behind you, move forward. So great things, and so proud of all the guys. I don't know if you saw Nick Saban's video where he was like, Jalen, Smitty, Landon, Job, 4 Alabama players there on the Eagles team. Really proud of you guys, and they did really well. And Josh Jobe, obviously more of a special teams guy.
Yeah.
So, hey, maybe he had a shot at Kadarius Toney. And we'll kind of talk about what we're looking at here with the Kadarius Toney run when we return on the student section.
WVUA-FM, Tuscaloosa.
Welcome back to the student section. I'm your host, Aidan Magouyrk, joined by Nick Elliott. We're talking the Super Bowl, biggest game in football. Kansas City Chiefs took down the Philadelphia Eagles 38-35. The Philadelphia Eagles allowed Kadarius Toney to make one of the most painful punt returns. He had a punt return of 65 yards.
Yeah.
That set up the game-winning field goal for the Chiefs.
No, it was a go-ahead touchdown.
Oh, excuse me, the touchdown.
Yeah.
It was painful to watch that. The Eagles are up. They are about to, it feels like, maybe pull away. Maybe if they can get this stop here, they might be able to go down there and score again. And things are looking up for the Eagles. Still have the lead. And the special teams blew it, allowing a 65-yard punt return by Kadarius Toney, who, by the way, was injured in the AFC Championship game and was obviously able to come back and play in this game. He also had a touchdown on a brilliant scheme by Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy earlier on in the game as well.
And we really thought Marquez Valdes-Scantling was going to be big in the game, and he had one target, no catches.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Pat Mahomes didn't get the yards, but they were really able to do whatever they wanted to on offense. That nobody could stop Travis Kelce per usual, which, I mean, getting closer and closer to the top as a tight end, number one tight end in NFL history. I mean, what he does is just insane. Fantastic player, man. Not many people. He has the route running. He has everything in that arsenal. What makes him great. I mean, Mahomes, even getting hurt in the first half, still gimpy on that ankle, man. Second half, I mean, you couldn't even tell that he was hurt. No.
Travis Kelce, the one thing about his game that is missing is blocking.
Yeah.
He's not an elite blocker.
Yeah.
He'll block like a receiver might block out in the space, but he never lines up on the edge and blocks by a tackle, which is why I still believe George Kittle is the best tight end in the NFL right now, because he is more complete, in my opinion, and is more of a well-rounded tight end than Travis Kelce. If Travis Kelce moved to wide receiver, there would be absolutely nothing lost in terms of blocking. In fact, you'd probably gain blocking from whoever the backup tight end is.
Yeah.
So that's the one aspect of Travis Kelce's game that I've always felt is lacking, is all he does is catch the ball. He's like a Kyle Pitts, in my opinion.
Yep.
And he had 6 catches for 81 yards and a touchdown, so he actually led the Chiefs in receiving with only 81 yards, and he had a really good first half. Kind of disappeared a little bit in the second half, didn't quite have as big of an impact in the second half.
Yep. And what makes it, more impressive is the Chiefs running game, man. Pacheco, man, he put on a show. It was fantastic. He could have broken another one for his second touchdown towards the end. It was a great open field tackle by Chauncey Gardner-Johnson.
Yeah.
If they would have scored off that, the Eagles would have had a chance. But it's just the running back future for the Kansas City Chiefs, who win the draft again with a fantastic steal, especially in the 7th round. That's the value in that. They don't even know what to do with Clyde Edwards-Helaire now.
Trade him.
Trade him, cut him, something. But Patrick Mahomes is on another level right now, and it's just what we're witnessing is just one of the best quarterbacks already in NFL history, and he's still so young in his career. It's just crazy to watch.
Isaiah Pacheco, 15 carries for 76 yards. Interestingly enough, Jalen Hurts also had 15 carries for 70 yards, so not quite as much, with 3 TDs, Pacheco with 1 TD. So, very similar rushing performance by Jalen Hurts. Just goes to show you how good of a runner Jalen Hurts is.
Yep. And he almost broke one in the first half. Tripped up by the grass, which that's another story. The grass. NFL, 2 years to plan for this Super Bowl Phoenix, and they could not get. I guess it's fine that they didn't use turf, so the players, we didn't see any more knee injuries or anything like that. But the grass, man, you got to do something. Had to maybe do with the painting on the field or something? The NFL's got to dive deeper into that to make sure, because player safety right now needs to be at an all-time high, and it's kind of lacking, and Goodell needs to do something about that.
Yeah, a lot of slipping on the grass, although I think players would prefer to slip a little bit versus tear an ACL because they're on turf.
Yep.
So, now, all right. Both offenses performed fantastic. Both quarterbacks had great performances. Both run games were really solid. Receivers for both teams, really good. Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, fantastic. Dallas Goedert had a really respectable game, right? 6 catches, 60 yards. Juju Smith-Schuster popped off for the Chiefs as well. 7 catches for 53 yards.
He's trying to get another year on that contract.
Yeah, and I would not blame him. Yeah. The Chiefs are a great place to be, especially if you're catching the football from Patrick Mahomes.
The coaching advantage, you could really see the distinct advantage that the Chiefs had in a coaching staff over the Eagles, and it really showed towards the end of the game. Some of the play calling that Bieniemy and Andy Reid were able to call, the 2 touchdowns were wide open. Nobody was even near Kadarius Toney and Sky Moore, and that's just great play calling, knowing where you put your playmakers in position to have a chance to succeed. And Jonathan Gannon, the Eagles, who's getting looked at for head coaching jobs. I wouldn't say he's a bad coach or coordinator or anything, but they just couldn't get stopped. They didn't
make the right adjustments at halftime.
The adjustments are not very good.
I would say the Eagles outcoached the Chiefs in the first half.
Yeah.
Right? You're up 10 points. Really, you probably could have been up by a lot more. Right. Even maybe 21 points there. You could have been up 14 if you had been able to score a touchdown. And then, of course, the Jalen Hurts fumble for a touchdown for the Chiefs. So
I guess what the Jonathan Gannon and Nick Sirianni were thinking is that they had a 10-point lead cushion, so they were going to probably just play zone and not let them get beat deep and just keep everything in front. But you got to adjust on the spot.
Right.
And the Eagles did not do a good job with that, and it really costed them because they have elite playmakers, defensive line, with secondary everywhere in that defense, and the defensive line cannot get in a position to make a play.
That defensive line was
shut down.
Highly disappointing in this game.
Yep.
Of course, now listen. The Chiefs have a very, very good offensive line. They have a top 5 offensive line, so I never thought that this defensive line was going to get 5 sacks.
2 or 3 at least, and they got 0. What's crazy is from the jump from 2021 offensive line that the Chiefs had to now is just crazy to think. The reason they lost that Super Bowl to the Bucs was that O-line, and they made significant stands and moves to make that O-line better, and it really showed. If the MVP didn't go to Patrick Mahomes, man, the Chiefs' whole O-line deserves the MVP in my books. Especially Kadarius Toney, he would get a look for MVP. Nick Bolton, I thought, was a defensive MVP for both teams. His play was incredible.
Yeah, Toney, I don't think really did enough to warrant the MVP.
But that punt return,
the punt return was great, and that definitely swung the game a little bit, but. Of course, Patrick Mahomes having the game that he did on a severely injured ankle. Mm-hmm. I would not be shocked if news broke in a couple days that he's going to have surgery on that ankle. He's going
to be off that ankle for a while.
Yeah, and it is a high ankle sprain, so we may see the tightrope surgery like we have seen in the past. Tua having both of his ankles done with the tightrope surgery due to high ankle sprains. The Eagles' defense did really well in the first half. And I think it just, like you mentioned, the coaching, it's all about the halftime adjustments, right? Andy Reid, Steve Spagnuolo, the defensive coordinator for the Chiefs, they're so much older than a lot of these guys on the Eagles coaching staff. They were able to make adjustments. Steve Spagnuolo is a guy, I don't know why people aren't giving him looks for a head coaching job.
I mean,
right?
He's been all over as DC. He's got great, what you said, great landscape of the league. He, does incredible jobs with that Chiefs defense.
Yeah.
Who were, back 2018, 2017, right when he got in there, they were one of the worst in the league, and now they're probably like top 10 in the league at least.
Yeah.
It's just
And you think about that undefeated in New England Patriots team,
Mm-hmm.
right? The one team that figured out that offense was the New York Giants, and who was their DC? Steve Spagnuolo, right? So you look at what he's been able to do against elite offenses over the years. He is fantastic. Now, he did serve like a 3-year stint, I think, as the head coach of the St. Louis Rams. I think he went like 11-42.
That team was a dump during that time in St. Louis. And
it was pretty difficult situation and not a great record. So maybe people still have a bad taste in their mouth. But I would certainly look at Steve Spagnuolo in terms of head coaching, especially now that he's been under Andy Reid.
Especially there's some coaches in the league like Dennis Allen who's had zero success as a head coach, and now he's being successful in the league, or now he's back in the league as a coach. Yeah,
so stick around, because when we get back on the student section, we are going to talk about the future of these two teams and where they are headed as franchises.
WVUA-FM, Tuscaloosa.
Welcome back to the student section. I'm your host, Aidan Magouyrk, joined by Nick Elliott. Breaking news while we were on break. It is expected that the Las Vegas Raiders will cut Derek Carr. That is not official. Obviously, they haven't done it yet. But I think early this past weekend, Derek Carr had announced that he will not be accepting a trade. He has a no-trade clause in his contract. And I think 3 days after the Super Bowl, so I believe this Wednesday, he had $40.4 million in terms of injury guarantees that were going to become fully guaranteed, which meant that the Raiders would have had to pay him $40.4 million extra after that money vested on Wednesday. So the Raiders were in a predicament, right? They either trade Derek Carr before that deadline or they cut him. And Derek Carr took multiple visits to the New Orleans Saints. It appeared like he was going to end up being traded to New Orleans, but I think some sources have reported that the Saints wanted him to restructure his contract. He wasn't about that. So he decided, if the Raiders are going to let me go, then I'm not going to help them get any kind of draft picks, and I'm not going to take any less money. I'm just going to get cut. So I do believe that the Raiders are going to cut Derek Carr, and he will be on the open market. Yeah. I think like a month in advance from a lot of these other quarterbacks that'll be on free agency, just because of the way that the situation's played out. He's getting cut so much earlier.
I think that was in his contract to get. They had until a certain date in February to get it done.
Yeah. So they either let him go or they pay that additional $40.4 million. So it'll save the Raiders a little bit of money. They're certainly not interested in keeping him. And it'll allow Derek Carr to go on the open market, right? Which means that teams can now bid for him, which I'm sure will make his contract go up a little bit. Although I do think the front runner right now is the Saints. But Nick, give me your thoughts on this. Who are some other teams that you think might entertain Derek Carr now that it looks like he's going to be cut from the Raiders?
I think the whole NFC South as a whole should be interested in Derek Carr, especially. You're trying now QBs I mean, no job is safe in NFC South if you're a QB on a team right now. I think some teams in the AFC South, like the Titans, could be looking into a quarterback. A team, I mean, like the Jets, I guess. There's at least like 6 or 7 or 8 teams that it could be all. But it's really going to be, I think he's going to have to take a lot less money than what he was getting in Oakland, which this is his prove it year right here. I mean, you're going to have to bet on yourself, and Derek Carr might just have to take, a pay cut and take a $10 million 1-year deal or something in the ballpark of that kind of deal to prove that he is worth the money that he was getting in Las Vegas.
Yeah, I'm interested to see where this goes. I do think the Saints will be in the market for him. I think he's an obvious upgrade over Jameis Winston and Andy Dalton. I think the Panthers might be in on this.
Sam Darnold obviously wasn't working out.
No, although I do believe the Panthers are sort of in like rebuild mode maybe. They bring in a new head coach. They're looking to start afresh and have what the Chiefs have or what the Bills have, which is a young quarterback with a really good offensive coach and a really good quarterback's coach that can stick with that quarterback and build something there.
The Panthers are probably the closest team ready to win, so maybe they could go into getting Derek Carr. I mean, they got a really good defense, really good. And the NFC South as a whole, it's going to be a mess. It's going to be nobody's going to know who's going to be the winner of that division until the quarterbacks are set in that division. I mean, the Bucs are also looking. I would say the Bucs need to try to get Derek.
The Bucs don't even have an offensive coordinator yet, though.
Not yet. They got to get that figured out, and I could see them trying to go get Jimmy G or something. This is going to be a crazy offseason. Some of the quarterbacks on the move, getting paid, getting traded. I mean, you get the draft class with good quarterbacks, not like last year. So it'll be an interesting offseason. I'm excited to see what's coming.
Yeah, I don't know about the Titans, though. I think with Ryan Tannehill still on contract there, how much of an upgrade is Derek Carr from Tannehill? I think that's, there is probably a bit of an upgrade, but I don't know if it's so significant that you'd let Tannehill go and bring in Carr. I think really what the Titans need to do right now is get either a coach that can really develop Malik Willis, and maybe you keep Tannehill on for the next couple years with Derrick Henry, and you try and compete as best as you can with those guys, and then Malik Willis you decide is your future and develop him, or do you go ahead and draft a other young quarterback and let Tannehill kind of mentor them for a year or two, and then let Tannehill go? I don't think Tannehill is going to be around for the Titans for too much longer, but I don't know if the Titans are really in the market for a quarterback right now, to be honest with you, because they still have Tannehill.
They're in a bad spot right now.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned the Jets. The Jets, it's been reported that they have officially reached out to Green Bay and inquired about Aaron Rodgers' availability. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers on a darkness retreat right now, which is very hippie of him. But he is on a retreat right now. So we'll see what happens with Green Bay and the Jets. Right, the Jets hired Nathaniel Hackett. Nathaniel Hackett was Rodgers' offensive coordinator 2 seasons ago. Familiarity there with Aaron Rodgers. You have a very good defense. I love Breece Hall as a running back. You just had the defensive rookie of the year and the offensive rookie of the year in Sauce Gardner and Garrett Wilson. So
head coach you want to play for, Robert Saleh. That could be another team that could be looking into maybe another Jimmy G. That could be another team.
Robert Saleh had coached the defense with the 49ers, 3 seasons ago?
The team that went to the Super Bowl with
Jimmy G, yep.
So that could be another spot if they don't get Aaron Rodgers. But that team is another team that's in the same boat as the Panthers. They have a really good roster that's a quarterback away from playoffs right there. That's a tough division, though, from the 2 divisions.
That is, yeah. The Dolphins, have hired Vic Fangio as their DC. That's a very, very good hire by Mike McDaniel in his second year, or going into his second year as head coach of the Dolphins. So
how is their issue, defense?
Yeah, they're about to be a very good team. Hopefully Tua can stay healthy. And hey, by the way, Dolphins, here's a quick word of advice. get a backup quarterback that isn't more brittle than Tua, right? Tua is not exactly the most durable guy. Teddy Bridgewater is actual glass. Like, he literally cannot stay healthy ever.
How about Mitch Trubisky? I saw they were maybe trying to look into that.
Maybe. But Teddy Two Gloves, man, every freaking time he played in a game, he got hurt almost immediately. Yeah. He's even more brittle and more injury prone at this point than Tua. Let Teddy go and bring in a quarterback, a high-end quarterback that is more healthy than Teddy Bridgewater.
They need to fix that O-line, too. They need to do something. They need to do something.
They've been figuring it out, bringing in Armstead and Connor Williams, right? So they've been getting better, but I think that they need to continue to develop that O-line. Great core of receivers, Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill. So they'll be good, but obviously we'll see where Derek Carr ends up. A couple teams on the market. The Saints, I think, would be an interesting pickup, right? Mike Thomas there, Chris Olave there. I don't know what's going to happen with Jarvis Landry. Alvin Kamara is still on the team. Pretty solid defense as a whole.
Solid.
And the division is really not very good. So that is a winnable division for the Saints with Derek Carr at the helm.
Division could be a division where 7-9 gets you in the playoffs. 8-9, excuse me.
Right.
But it's going to be a very interesting division. That's going to be one to keep an eye out for during free agency and whatnot.
Now the question is, what happens with the Raiders? Do they draft a quarterback, or do they go after a guy like Jimmy Garoppolo? Do they go after Aaron Rodgers, right? They got Devontae Adams on the roster.
Yeah, I mean, they could make... It's going to be interesting to see. That's another team. They need defense and a quarterback. They got great receivers, great tight end, great... I mean, they got 3 signed Josh Jacobs, too, and that's a guy that's going to be getting paid and getting looked at by other teams. So
yeah, Raiders, we'll see what happens with Jacobs.
Got a big shopping cart for their offseason.
Yeah, I mean, Sean Payton did an interview with Josh Jacobs, and he talked about Josh Jacobs, and he said after he was announced as the head coach of the Broncos that they may decide to take a look into signing Josh Jacobs.
And
so
that would not be a bad look for a team right there. They need a running back.
Yeah, I mean, Javonte Williams is a very promising young running back, right? This is going to be his 3rd season, but he has been injured. Josh Jacobs just led the NFL in rushing yards. Maybe he decides to stick around, but playing under Sean Payton with the Denver Broncos, that would not be a bad gig for a running back. So, a lot happening in the world of sports, obviously, especially in the world of football. Before we go, let's jump back here to the Super Bowl. And we're not going to talk about the Super Bowl, but I want to talk about these two teams moving forward, right? And we'll start, I think, with the Kansas City Chiefs. 3 Super Bowl appearances in 4 years. 2 Super Bowls in 4 years. Patrick Mahomes, 2 MVPs, 2 Super Bowls, 2 Super Bowl MVPs. I think he's, a 3-time Pro Bowler, 4-time Pro Bowler? Oh, no, 5-time Pro Bowler, 5-time Pro Bowler. Andy Reid now, I think, certainly in the Hall of Fame, 2-time head coach, right? But let's look at this. Let's look at the Chiefs now, moving forward with Andy Reid, who says he's sticking around. I don't know for how long. It seems like he's sort of teeter-tottering on retirement, but I don't think he's going to retire in the next couple years. I could see him retire in 4 or 5. But, he's got Patrick Mahomes in his prime, so I think he'll stick around. Where is this team headed, right? Is dynasty reasonable for the Chiefs?
I think it's very reasonable. I mean, 2 Super Bowls in the past 3 years, or 2 Super Bowls the past 4 years, excuse me. But they're just continue to reload, draft good, get good key signings that are very underrated, not paid much because they probably don't have much cap space to work around, especially when you have Patrick Mahomes getting big dollars and Travis Kelce making big dollars and Chris Jones. When you got guys you got to pay, you can't pay them all in the NFL with the cap. But I think they're more, just the coaching they have with Spagnuolo would be enemy if they don't leave, especially with just Andy Reid, Hall of Famer head coach, as you said. I think they're more equipped for the future than the Eagles, per se, in my opinion. I think Dynasty, I think they're going to be the team to beat in the AFC for at least 2 years going forward, and I don't see that changing anytime soon.
Well, I agree with you. I think the Chiefs are on this dynasty path. We'll see what they can do, right?
Yep.
But Patrick Mahomes is 27?
Yeah, somewhere in there.
Somewhere, he's in his late 20s. Yeah. So I don't know how much longer he's got.
He's got a
he
lot.
could be a Tom Brady where he plays really, really late into his career like Aaron Rodgers, but we'll see.
I don't know. It's kind of too early to tell.
It is too early to tell, and the way that he plays, right? He's more mobile. He gets more out of the pocket.
Yep.
He takes more hits that way.
That's why
that tends not to bode well for guys playing really deep into their careers.
Yep.
But then again, Aaron Rodgers is a more mobile guy, and he's about to turn 40.
I don't think Mahomes' mobility compared to Rodgers is, I wouldn't say night and day, but it's pretty different from each other. So it's going to be different when you get to the generation quarterbacks like Kyler Murray, Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, to see over the next 10 to 12 years the durability on those quarterbacks, because those are the more Lamar Jackson, the more mobile quarterbacks, because we haven't had that in the NFL, so we don't really know.
Well, we have with Cam Newton.
Cam Newton, true, but
he is a pretty good example of what taking hits does to a guy, and it means short career.
Yeah, that could be a worry on Jalen Hurts, because Jalen Hurts, Cam Newton,
I think Hurts takes a lot less hits than Newton, right?
Yeah,
Hurts slides more.
Yeah.
Kyler Murray, one thing that Kyler Murray does really well is he protects himself. He's small in stature, and he's not a super thick guy. He's a really fast dude, though. So what he does a lot is get out of bounds quickly. So we'll see what happens, but we're going to jump to the Eagles here really quickly. I think the Eagles are poised to have a lot of success. I think they'll be getting back to the Super Bowl.
Yep.
When, I don't know, but you have Jalen Hurts, who is a third-year starter, a second-year starter. This is his third year in the NFL, right? He's a phenomenal quarterback. Nick Sirianni is a young head coach.
Yep.
Howie Roseman has done a fantastic job building a roster around these guys. They're set up to compete again next year. This is a team that I could see win the NFC again next year.
Yeah, I agree. They're going to be losing a lot in free agency. 10 of their key players. Some of their defensive linemen. I wouldn't expect Sue, Bradbury, just C.J. Gardner-Johnson. He's going to be expecting a payday, so I don't know if he's going to want to stick around. Because I don't know if the Eagles are going to have. Their first priority should be sign Jalen Hurts to an extension, and they have draft capital, so they have 2 first-round picks, so they could go in the draft and potentially get another big key player like they did last year with A.J. Brown. So I agree. I think the NFC East is definitely the Philadelphia Eagles right now, until the Giants or Commanders do anything about that. But I think they are keen to win now, so it's going to be interesting next year what they do.
Yeah, I agree. These are both fantastic teams. They're built really well with great quarterback play, great head coaches. Nick Sirianni has proven himself, right? Second year as a head coach, gets to the playoffs. Third year as a head coach, gets to the Super Bowl.
It's only a bright future for Nick Sirianni.
Exactly.
The great emotion he was showing before the game. That's what makes sports special, man. It's just incredible stories that we get to hear about these athletes, what they've been through, the success that they have. It's just awesome.
Yeah, so that's going to do it for us tonight, but be sure to tune in next week. I know that technically is the end of the games in college and pro football, but there is so much happening in the world of football during this offseason that you need to stay up to date, and we are the place to do it. Next week, we are going to be talking about all of the staff changes that have happened in the NFL, head coaches, general managers, coordinator openings, what that will mean for each team and each division moving forward into next season. We'll start talking about mock drafts, pro days, potentially the combine, spring football. We may even do a schedule overview for Alabama football, talking about potential wins and losses looking into next season. All kinds of fantastic football talk That's going to continue to happen over these next couple months. So be sure to tune in every Monday night from 7 to 8 for the student section.
WVUA-FM, Tuscaloosa.